Alright, what's up guys, welcome back to a new video on East Coast Manga. So today I want to talk about Deadman Wonderland. So this is a very interesting series because it took me a little bit to read it. I had volumes 1 through 12 and I had them probably for a couple weeks before I read them. And I decided, because I didn't have volume 13, I wanted to get volume 13 before I read the whole series because I was probably going to end up binging it. So as you guys saw in one of my hauls, I did end up getting volume 13, so I decided to start it. And as soon as I got into volume 1, it was just like back-to-back volumes. I think I read the whole thing in 2 or 3 days just because I kind of split it up and I was doing other things. But that's not to say I couldn't finish the whole series in one sitting, which I probably could. It would take a little bit, but I probably could. It's just that good in my opinion. You guys know I like darker manga and a little more like violent, and honestly this manga just kind of like checked all the check marks for what I like in manga, and it also piqued my curiosity because it's not a straightforward manga. It's really well written and well thought out. I feel like no volume was rushed. I feel like the idea and the concepts weren't rushed. I feel like 13 volumes was the perfect amount of volumes for this manga. Also, this manga introduces a lot of characters, and these characters by the end of the manga are actually pretty memorable. Like, you remember at least the faces to all these characters, and you kind of remember what their abilities are, and we'll get into that now. So the story revolves around the main protagonist or main character, Ganta, who is, I believe, a 6th grader, and it starts off with his entire class getting murdered. And I just want to announce this. I'm not going to give any spoilers if I haven't already said this, but this is just going to be general knowledge or just non-spoiler stuff about the book. So his entire class gets murdered in front of him by this like red man type figure that pops up in the window and just absolutely like brutally murders every single person in the class except for him. So with him being the last person in the class alive, he basically gets framed for the murder and goes to court and is basically found guilty. He's also, and I believe he's either sentenced to death or sentenced to like a life sentence. I think it's death row though. And he gets sent to this prison which is called Deadman Wonderland. And it's basically where like the worst of the worst criminals go and get put into this prison. And to start off, the prison's pretty normal, but then you find out that there's another section to this prison that most people don't know about, and it's called, I believe it's section G, and that is where the warden keeps the prisoners that are considered dead man. So dead man prisoner is someone who has these abilities or kind of like a quirk. So if you think My Hero Academia, it's very similar to this. So these people have these quirks and or powers that they can use, but it's all based off of blood. So there's like different weapons and abilities that people can use using their own blood. And to kind of show you guys what I'm talking about, this is an example. So Ganta's ability, or his first ability, which, you know, like I said, this isn't really a spoiler, it's just something you can find. This is just something you can know, it's not a bad thing, is he's able to shoot out of his hand. And it's basically these like balls or like spheres of just this like damage causing energy from his blood. It's a strange concept, but it works really well. I'm not like the best at explaining it, but there's one person who can like create blades out of his arms and all this kind of stuff. And that's how the Red Man ended up killing his entire classroom in basically like an easy sweep. As he used that power. So I'm not going to get into like the origin of the powers or, you know, like too much about that because like I've been saying, I don't want to spoil stuff, but it's a very cool concept that works very well. It's like I said, it's weird for me to talk about, but it's not weird when you read it in the manga. And it's a very kind of typical in a sense where your protagonist starts off kind of weak and then by the end of the manga he's very strong, but you know, there's a lot of battles and death and like violent, gruesome death that takes place in this manga between the beginning and the end. And there's also, like I've been saying, the characters are fantastic. Like there's very interesting characters that aren't just throwaway characters. So, you know, if certain character dies, you're actually like kind of sad or disappointed or like pissed off, especially because he's so extremely like good-hearted and good-natured that he easily bonds and kind of grows friendships with characters who don't necessarily have a lot of friends because they're not really the nicest of characters. But yeah, this is a really interesting story. The Section G, basically the warden makes these dead men fight each other, so like there'll be battles every other night or something like that, or you know, like I don't know how often they are exactly, but it'll be 1v1 battles where the loser basically has to pull this lottery machine, and whatever pops up is whatever piece of their body they're going to be getting removed. So it could be like a leg, an arm, an eye. Like it's pretty awful. And obviously, from what I've told you, the rest of the story is kind of based off of you know, Ganta trying to escape, but also more so try to redeem himself or redeem his classmates and kill the red man who essentially came in and ruined his entire life and killed all of his friends. Now hopefully I did a half decent job explaining this and maybe getting some of you guys who haven't tried this yet interested in it, or maybe even turning some of you guys away if you don't like kind of violent manga. But in my opinion, this is just basically a pretty dark and violent shonen type title. There's definitely areas of shonen and definitely areas of seinen in this. So if you're not a huge fan of either of those, I don't recommend reading this. But if you are, I absolutely do recommend reading this. I've talked to a bunch of people who like this is one of their favorite titles, so I think it can absolutely belong in yours if you like this kind of stuff. And I think really the reason why it took me a while to read this is because, I don't know, I just thought it was going to be a little goofy. I thought it was going to be like more of a carnival aspect to it, like the Deadman Wonderland, but it's not. That's not what it is. It's like a battle arena type situation. It's very, very cool. It's not goofy or like weird. And it's also a manga where I really, really enjoyed the ending. I thought it was really well written and really well done. Like I said before, it didn't feel rushed at all. So with a 13-volume series, it's not too long. Shouldn't take too much out on your bank account. There isn't a box set, unfortunately, but either way, I do think it is well worth the purchase. Also, one of the female characters in this, Shiro, is also one of my favorite characters who I've read throughout manga in terms of female characters, or just in terms of characters in general. I think she's awesome, and I think her storyline throughout this and her purpose in being in this manga was incredible, and going back and just like rereading and looking over some of the chapters after I've finished it is really, really cool. And you'll know what I mean if you've already read this, or if you're or after you've read it. But it's another manga I highly recommend, and for the people who have this in their collection and haven't read it yet, definitely get on that, because I'm telling you, it is really, really good. And for the people who've watched the anime, I haven't watched the anime yet. I've heard it's good, but I believe it stops super short, like maybe even at like volume 6, so it's not the entire story, and because of that, I believe it's like ranked as a pretty bad anime. But if that's true, hopefully it can continue at some point, because I think this could look super, super cool in anime. And it's not just your average battle manga, because it is very, very emotional. This volume right here was super brutal, and not because of like deaths and stuff like that, like just because of the storyline and what it explained and what it went over was just, it was really tough. But that's been it for this review. I didn't want to get into too many spoilers, so hopefully I encourage some of you guys to check this out and read it. And if you guys already have read this, I would love to see down in the comments what you thought of the series. I've talked to a bunch of people, and everyone seems to really, really like the manga. And unless you don't like dark and violent manga, I don't really see why you wouldn't like this, because the story is just fantastic too. But that's just my opinion, so I will catch you guys later.